Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out Really Dicey. This is Manny, and today I am here with.
I'm James Parks, one of the co-creators of Land of Eem.
And I'm Ben Costa, the other co-creator of Land of Eem.
As you can guess, we're going to talk about Land of Eem, a book that you both have created and you've both worked together for a long time, right? You've known each other for ages.
Yeah, we've known each other since the second grade, and we've been working together since then too. I mean, we made comics with crayons and stuff, and we always wrote stories together. We made movies together in high school, and we also made comics, and that's really where it began, working on
Yeah,
comics.
we've been long time best pals and collaborators across a lot of different media, including books and graphic novels, where we got our professional start. And then we've always had this love for tabletop games, and we decided to create the Land of Eem in the world of our book series.
I have to say, I'm really intrigued with this book. It feels to me that Land of Eem hits perfectly where we're at so, as a society when it comes to our love and understanding of mythology. It has a flavor of Adventure Time and Gravity Falls and similar. The art style is incredible. It fits. I think it's perfect. Like when you look at certain art, I feel they can tell like what period they're from. Especially if you look at Disney movies or anime or anything like that. But Land of Eem, that to me screams today. It I feel like this setting and this book is everything what D&D strives to be right now. And I don't know if that's too big of a thing to say, but that's but to be serious, like when I look at today's Dungeons and Dragons, and they keep looking at like Great Hawk and Phantom Realms. When I think of Land of Eem, when I look at the world and what I've seen so far, it seems incredible. It seems like this is what's calling me now for adventure.
Well,
Um,
thanks so
Yeah, thank
much.
you. Very kind of you, for sure.
no one
Um,
paid me to say that. Uh,
I was about to say, I didn't slip you a hundy.
Uh, I guess what I could say is that we just really strive to keep true to our book series, like the ones that I'm illustrating, and we've enlisted a bunch of artists for Land of Eem. The cover right here is by Justin Gerard, but I designed the main characters there, and the enemies and stuff, and he came and like made an awesome dragon and put it in his own painterly style. We knew that we wanted the core rulebook to be like really just have this really splashy image with a more cartoony yet painterly style. And so we that's kind of how we art directed for the covers. And throughout the books, we just want to maintain, keeping the colorful, really expressive cartoony style as well.
mm,
Yeah, it was a kind of a mix of wanting to capture the soul of the world, the tone of the world, which is often described as the Lord of the Rings meets the Muppets, and then working with folks like Justin Gerard and many others, it gives it this like timelessness, and that's what I really like about the cover.
you mentioned that this looks cartoony, and so I just wanted to clarify something because in today's animation, something may look cartoony but could be extremely mature. I wouldn't call, like for example, Gravity Falls or Adventure Time for kids. Kids could watch them, but it's just there's so much. It's like Simpsons. It's like yeah, it looks cartoony, but it's there's a lot of adult themes within it. Would you say Land of Eem is like that as well, or would you say actually maybe it is for younger viewers or younger players?
No, I think yeah, it's very much like that. What's interesting though is like we sort of came up parallel with Adventure Time. Like we weren't I mean, we like it, but we weren't super influenced by it. I think we maybe share influences with the creators of those things, and
Yeah,
that's why there's like real similarities there. Which is, I do want to reiterate though, we love Adventure Time. It's just when we were making Land of Eem, we were like not really paying attention to that.
yeah. Like our a lot of the core inspirations behind Land of Eem were things that were effectively capturing that tonal shift that you're talking about. Land of Eem is definitely approachable by all ages, but it has all kinds of thematic elements in it, that are adult. It's not necessarily a kid's game. And an influence that Ben and I both have is like Jeff Smith's Bone, where it's this epic comic adventure that shifts between the cartoony gag and the actual conflicts that are going on in this fantasy world in the Great Valley. And Land of Eem is similar in that way. We wanted to be able to approach the kind of conflicts that exist and are a serious threat and can help characters grow, but also the fact that when we're all heroes around the table, we tend to goof off a lot. And what if you designed a game that rewarded that as well as, saving the world?
So, Land of Eem, how you best describe this setting?
One thing we like to say, and this will give you more into what our like real influences are, is the Muppets meets the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So you've got your silly, happy-go-lucky, whimsical characters, but they're often thrust into these perilous situations. Sometimes it's, like way above their pay grade, and it's totally cool in Land of Eem to run away from a giant dragon. You don't have to fight it, or you can talk to it and work out a business deal or something. Parlaying with adversaries is a huge part of the game.
Yeah, it's about creativity. Using the creative solution to solve what would normally just be a hack and slash fight in a lot of tabletop RPGs. And Land of Eem focuses on that creativity so that you could potentially defeat that dragon, not by straight up fighting, but with a variety of different potential methodologies that would be just as heroic. And that's what always drew me to the Land of Eem, is that you can approach things from a totally different perspective, even though those things may be as perilous as Sauron and the Ring.
You mentioned about working on comic books first. Was it Land of Eem kind of a result of working on comics together?
Yeah, totally. Because it all started with our series Rickety Stitch and the Gelatinous Goo, which is about a skeleton bard who goes on a quest with his best pal, who's a blob of jelly. And they're trying to discover who he was when he was alive. He's an undead skeleton with no real memory of his past. And that's really where the Land of Eem started.
Yeah. It's the first official story ever told in the Land of Eem. And it's a three volume graphic novel series that we published with a Random House. And after
Exalted Funeral,
now with Exalted Funeral, with a very special Exalted edition of the books, which we're really excited about. And it was the first time that we started world building, but we did it always from the perspective of the character's experience and journey first. And then Ben and I separately have this deep love of tabletop RPGs. We've played for our entire lives, various different games, but much of our influence came from second edition Dungeons and Dragons. And over the years, we've had tons of homebrew stuff. We've made our own games, and all of our pals are doing the same sorts of things. We knew we wanted to create a game that was more clear, we knew we wanted to play a game that would be more fun for us and our sensibilities. And so that drew us into creating the Land of Eem and using Rickety Stitch as this world springboard. And then from there, it just proliferated into Dungeoneer Adventures series with Simon and Schuster. And then now we're working on new Land of Eem material, a new book series that use the Land of Eem as a touch point. And so it in many ways it sort of got out of hand, but we've been chasing the thing that we love for the last several years now.
As the authors, I think we've got a good handle on how to exactly translate the tone and feel of our stories into a game.
Yeah, and one benefit of working on the game as well is that it allows us to flesh out elements of a setting or the world that wouldn't normally get so much depth in an actual narrative like a novel or a graphic novel. And so we find ourselves developing this larger and larger sandbox, and we released the Mucklin sandbox just recently, but that's only one corner of the Land of Eem. If you've read our book series, you know that there are all these other places as well, and we are in the process of working on some in an order of priority. But creating these settings actually helps us as authors, because now we've got this giant living backdrop to have character focused stories in. So it's I really like the approach, and I like Ben said, I think it's totally unique.
I know in my experience when I create adventures and sometimes I think, oh, maybe I could make a game out of it as well. I always get stuck when it comes to rule making. Did you both have that problem also when I mean you must have made the setting and thought, oh, this is an exciting world you want to share with people. But did you get like any did you have any issues creating rules for it?
It's a
Not
good
really.
question.
I think we've played RPGs our entire lives, since fourth grade, and one of our friends is a game designer and was always tinkering and making games at a very young age, and I think that rubbed off on us over the years.
Yeah.
And so we've dabbled in our own games here and there. Nothing published, but we've done a lot of game design over the years, and I think it's kind of second nature now.
Yeah, and we were both drawn to making the D12 the star of the show really early in the process. And also taking elements from other games that we liked and reimagining them how they would fit together in a game like Land of Eem to provide Ben the sort of ease of use in some cases that we really like and like to play with, but also a little bit of crunch in the places that we also enjoyed that crunch. So it's a Frankenstein monster if Frankenstein was a puppet made out of felt.
So it looks like just from the cover alone, it looks like it could be anthropomorphic creatures, but as humans, it looks like there's some fantasy characters, classic fantasy characters like goblins or orcs. Who can you be? What can you be in this world?
So
Uh,
Land of Eem is always meant to be this living, vibrant, colorful world with all kinds of cultures, all mixed together in different parts and different regions and with their own little stories. And so we wanted to make it flexible, but also tell the story of heroes that are atypical from what you would see in a more standard tabletop role playing game.
so if you ever wanted to play as a blob of goo, now's your chance.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Was there anything you were inspired by specifically? Was it like this classic D&D or something much more modern?
A lot of it is just comes from our books, and we wanted to reflect what's in there. In Land of Eem, humans are actually a minority of people. They're pretty few and far between in the world. Their kingdoms, like, were, you know, prominent long ago, and now you've got boggarts and goblins and boggles and all these things uh, that are, ruling the world. And so we wanted to reflect this huge, multicultural smorgasbord of different people you can be. Um, you got your turtle folk and your frog folk and your mushroom folk. And of course, Rickety Stitch is so prominent, we felt like you had to be a skeleton, even though within our lore, that's like a super rare thing of having a sentient skeleton. Mostly they're all just mindless undead creatures. But, you know, once you play the game, it's your world. So
Yeah.
we're cool with it.
That's sort of how we approach it. It's like once you open that book, it's yours, and you can do with it as you will to make your own world and your own adventures and add into the great mythos that is the Land of Eem as it grows and grows.
So let's talk about the rules a little bit. Nothing too specific, but how does like let's say combat or even a skill check? How do the rolls work? Is it all d6s or?
It's actually a D12 system that we made, and it uses gradations of success and failure. So there's a chart actually for skill checks. So you've got the basic mechanic is roll a d12 and add your skill to it. And so 1 to 2 is a complete failure, which means you fail and something extra chaotic happens. 3 to 5 is you failure with a plus, so you fail, but there's some silver lining. And the thing with the whole game is that we want everything to move forward. So you can fail forward, something happens. There's never a moment where you're like, okay, I failed. What do we do now? I guess we try the same action again. That's kind of out the window. It's like you did something and now the situation is different. And moving on, 6 to 8 is success with a twist. So you succeed at the action, but there's a little snag in your operation. 9 through 11 is success, straight success. What trying to do succeeded. And 12 plus is succeed with some awesome benefit. And we have examples for all these things, and for every skill, we run through examples of how to interpret the dice, because there's a lot of interpretation at the table, which is not entirely up to the GM. Tables are encouraged to have everyone's input, with the GM having the ultimate, final say on it. But we also have examples for how to use the various class abilities and stuff. So we really want to give people a feel of how to be creative and how they should look to be using these things.
Oh, interesting. And if I may ask, how does magic work in this world?
So that's a good question. So Land of Eem is actually traditionally pretty low magic. It is a very magical place and a very magical land filled with ancient secrets and magical items and magic books and scrolls of spells and things. But there are no wizards. The characters live in a world where all the wizards are gone. And so they are often unearthing lost magic. It's a part of this fantasy realm that is not immediately accessible to the average adventurer.
Now, the one exception in the core rulebook is the gnome, who does have some magic. And so you can be a gnome. That's one of the classes, and also one of the folk. So, of course, they have to be paired together. A gnome can only be a gnome, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But they do wield some, nature magic.
If I may ask, or which characters or which character types do you find yourself drawn into playing? Is there a certain creature you like playing the best?
Gosh, I that's a tough one for me. I'm actually playing a different class, one that we're playtesting from our Patreon called the Tycoon at the moment, which is like an entrepreneur. And, and that has led to many funny moments and hilarious, in the Land of Eem. But I would have to say that I really did enjoy playing the Rascal, and the Loyal Chum is probably my favorite. They're like the heart of the party, the heart of the group. And yeah, I love the Loyal Chum. That's my jam.
Yeah, I also love the Loyal Chum. I feel like it's an interesting take on a class that you don't really see in other games. But I also love the Bard. I think it allows you to be really creative and kind of shape the world around you in ways that is pretty unique.
Yeah. In fact, there's a lot of that in Land of Eem, where abilities that players have actually interact with the world and create things that weren't there before for tons of reasons, to solve problems or to create hijinks. It's part of that fail forward mentality where every element of the game is meant to encourage that role playing creativity between the team, because it's that type of gameplay that Ben and I find to be the most fun and the most memorable when you're around the table.
So let's talk a little bit about like game master tools. So when it comes to villains or non-player characters, well, mostly villains, what's available? Do you have something like some villain NPCs already made, or is there like a dark castle somewhere in the horizon that you've made in the setting?
There's some layers to that. In the Land of Eem, there is like a big bad. His name is the Gloom King, and most folk don't even believe that he exists, but he's out there. And the way the setting is set up is that it's currently a world in decay. It's almost a quasi-apocalypse, and that dungeoneering tycoons and industrialists and dark lords and whatever, they kind of run the world, and all the PCs represent the average Joe who's trying to do their best to make it a better world. And the kinds of tools that we've created for GM specifically to play in this world are, we have a pretty significantly sized sandbox setting, which is called the Mucklands. It's like over 400 pages and has hundreds of NPCs and quests and hooks and locations and accessible details that make it easy to run games on the fly, especially if it's emergent play and sandbox based. We also have a bunch of adventures, and it has its own bestiary with 190 adversaries that range from sentient creatures. That's like creatures are meant to be people in the Land of Eem. So when you talk to the dragon, you can talk to the manticore, you can talk to the goblins as easily as you can talk to the spider. And it's meant to make, it's right there. And it's meant to make it so that when you're interacting and using your skills and using these fail forward dice mechanic mentality, you're able to create adventure and hijinks and conflict at every step. Then there's also critters, which are like your animals in the Land of Eem, and then creepers, which are not threats that you can defeat with a sword. They're more like swarms of insects and environmental hazards that have to be avoided with creative means.
So the Land of Eem, it's is there a set of books, kind of like the Dungeons and Dragons, where it has like a Dungeon Master's Guide, Player's Handbook, and a Monster Manual? Is it both one book, set of books?
So the deluxe set is a set of books. You can play with the core rule book because the tools are there. You have about 25 plus adversaries, and there's random encounters, and you have the map, and you can make your own campaign using the map, or just make your own thing whole cloth. But we also have this giant sandbox book with like James is going into, just a plethora of detail. There's 450 plus NPCs that are all illustrated, hundreds of locations, and it's meant to be more of a reference book than something that you need to read cover to cover. It's like, dive into the world, have your players go on a path, throw some rumors and quest hooks at them, see where they go. And let's say next session you're heading to a town. Yeah, skip ahead to the town, read it, and see what's going on there. But
What's going on, like who's there, what their motivations are, what their personalities are like, what they need done, or it's like Ben said, it's meant to be reference material so a GM could easily understand everything about that location, and to give it more life so that the NPCs aren't just static characters that are quest givers. They're like living, breathing people with their own motivations and their own traits and quirks, and they have relationships with other NPCs, and so it just compounds the personality and the potential conflict on top of each other. Just pile it on. That's what we like to do: pile on conflict, pile on interest, and really make the Land of Eem, specifically the Mucklands realm, feel alive, so that when you're in it, there's stakes everywhere.
Yeah, and if we haven't touched on this yet, the game is very much about travel and exploration, because we have this big hex map, big colorful hex map. I'll get it in a second.
We've got like the standard set too. This has the books and the map in it. Oh, it's blurring it out, but so you can check out details at Exalted Funeral.
We've got this giant hex map board that comes with the deluxe set, and it's a hex map. So we have procedural travel rules that really make travel fun, and it relies on random encounters, and all of the random encounters are curated for the region, and there's various levels of random encounters, and one of them is discovery, so you can discover some awesome thing in the world, maybe a new little location, an NPC, an item, something like that. And there's 1,500 of them in the PDF book of random encounters. The core rule book has about 260 something, I believe. So
Oh wow,
it's all centered around being able to just go out into the world and have that sense of exploration.
character creation. What's involved exactly? Would you say it's a very easy process, quick process?
There's a couple of phases for it. There's like the actual mechanical creation of your character where you adjust your stats and here's where you're at. And then there's the personal character development aspect, which in session 0 we always encourage people to work on their personal quests and how they all interact with each other. And there's, tables and charts in the book to make it easy, so you could legitimately like roll your personal quest, roll the kinds of flaws and ideals your character has, and then you connect with everybody, because the one concept of Land of Eem is that you're all buddies already. You're not like randomly meeting at a tavern, though you could do that. But the idea is that you have these personal connections with each other, because that helps create camaraderie, which is always a fun and rewarding element when you're going on adventures together. If you really care about each other and what each other are trying to accomplish, it adds that sense of, oh, this is really dangerous, we better be careful, in a way that sometimes I feel like I don't get when people just show up and it's like, you all meet in a tavern and you don't know each other, introduce yourselves.
It's also
That session sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's also partly how you gain experience. It's through these relationships and ideals and flaws and personal quests that we have, which is, like James said, the second layer of character creation. I would say, that adds a little more time to it, because you're working with the other players and coming up with stories and things like that. The first part of character creation is, I think, pretty quick in terms of putting your numbers together and choosing your class. You don't have to choose much for your class. You get both abilities at first level. Then when you get to second level, that's when you make the choice about which ability to keep. So each level, you are getting 2 abilities that you can try out. And once you get to the next level, you make the choice.
Yeah, try it before you buy it
Right.
methodology. One thing that I think is important to mention is that, and Ben touched on this a little bit, since Land of Eem is a creative focused game, you don't gain experience from fighting. There's no reward for fighting at all. It's about pursuing your quest, discovering things in the world, how you literally how you interact with people with your ideals or your flaws. So Land of Eem rewards the mechanics that are in the game with XP generation, which we've learned actually propels the adventure in the game. It creates more depth in the game than just how many XP did I get from smushing that skeleton.
Oh, that's great. So I don't have to worry about people. Don't, well, game masters don't have to worry about like murder hobos or anything like that
Yeah.
in the game. No, that's good. I like the emphasis on travel. I like the emphasis on problem solving. In my opinion, this makes games more interesting. So this is out right now, and you could pick up your copy through Exalted Funeral, both the PDF and the hard copy. Is this available anywhere else besides hopefully your local gaming store?
Yeah, I was going to say, you ask for it in your local gaming store. You can get it from exaltedfuneral.com. And I think there are also a few other online sellers, but I think you can get the PDFs as well when you purchase from Exalted Funeral, which is really helpful if you want to share the game with a group.
Okay, excellent. Is there anything else about this I haven't asked you about that you wanted to share?
We also have, like I mentioned, the Mucklan's Book of Random Encounters, as well as Adventures in the Mucklan's, which are 2 PDFs that have not been printed. They may be in the future, but right now they're just a couple of PDFs that you can grab. And I think Random Encounters, for me and for us when we play, is like one of the most essential things to have,
Yeah,
just because it adds so much depth and variety.
it's almost 100 pages of random encounters that are very thematic, specifically to the Mucklands and the Mucklands map. So it adds a lot of life and flavor when you're doing your travel. But if people just want to check it out, like see it and play with it for the first time, you can go to landofelem.com and download the quick start guide for free. It's about 40 pages, got a free adventure and everything you need to play, including some pre-gen characters. And then if you want to check out it, if you want to check out what the community is, join our Discord for sure. It's very active with lots of people that are playing the game, starting games, answering questions about mechanics, or giving advice for running games. And then every weekend, Ben and I stream our own personal game on our YouTube channel. We also have a podcast where we talk about some of the approach to game design and storytelling.
Thank you both for taking the time to talk about the Land of Eem. I'm very excited about this. There are some people I know that are dying for me to run this game, and so I got to get to work.
That's great. That's great.
And to our viewers or listeners, thank you for checking us out. Please like and subscribe. Be safe out there. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having
A lot
us.
for having us, Manny.